There's nothing between me and Rachel. We're just like brothers.
My
We
girlfriend is
literally
6 years
grew up
older than
together
me.
in diapers. If something were really going on between us, do you think you'd even have a chance? Jake barked, holding Rachel tightly in his arms, looking at me with nothing but disappointment and contempt. Before I could get a word in, Rachel cut in loudly, her tone casual and dismissive. Madeline, I know you're educated and probably can't understand the kind of loyalty that exists between people like us who come from the streets. But Jake and I are seriously just like siblings. Think about it. If I really had something with him, would I have married another man? Jake glanced at Rachel with clear admiration, then turned to me, his tone sharp and impatient. Madeline, stop projecting your twisted, uptight, book-smart ideas onto me and my brothers. Rachel's husband is trash. Look at what he did to her. I'm taking her to the hospital. Give me $500. Then go to the market, buy an old hen, and make some chicken soup to bring to her later. He gave the order like it was the most natural thing in the world, as if he'd forgotten that we'd been married for 2 years and he hadn't contributed a single cent to our household. Every bit of money he made went straight into treating his so-called brothers to drinks and dinners. I stood there frozen. Seeing that I didn't move, Rachel started squirming in his arms, her eyes reddening as she looked at me and said, "Jake, I should just go to the hospital on my own. I don't want to be the reason you two are fighting." A flicker of emotion briefly crossed Jake's usually stoic face. Seeing Rachel still struggling to get away, he simply bent down and scooped her up in his arms. Brothers are like limbs. Women are just clothes. Rachel, don't worry. No matter who I marry, my brothers will always come first. Then, without looking at me, he added coldly, "If you don't want to make the chicken soup, fine. Just give me the $500. I stiffened and answered flatly, "I don't have any money." Rachel let out a deliberately shocked gasp. "Come on, Madeline. That's not okay. Jake risks his life every day out on the streets to make that money. Don't tell me you haven't even saved $500. No offense, but with that kind of attitude, you really aren't cut out to be the wife of our big brother." Jake's face twitched with discomfort at her words. He was just about to speak up, but I cut him off. "I wanted to be thrifty, but how exactly am I supposed to save money when your big brother Jake hasn't brought a single dollar into this house in the 2 years we've been married?" Rachel blurted. "But don't you have a salary?" I sneered. "Oh, so you do know that it's my salary." She fell silent, clearly embarrassed, and turned to bury her face in Jake's chest. Jake, realizing he was in the wrong, didn't dare say another word about chicken soup. He turned around, holding Rachel, and rushed off to the hospital. I collapsed onto the wooden bed, completely drained, my body weak and trembling. A quiet wave of relief washed over me. Thank God I hadn't gotten pregnant with Jake's child this past year. Jake and I were never from the same world to begin with. He was the head of a local street gang, commanding dozens of men. I came from a traditional family of scholars, a good girl who had never even been in a fight. 3 years ago, a local thug took a liking to me and wouldn't leave me alone. When I refused to date him, he actually kidnapped me and tried to force himself on me. Just when things looked hopeless, Jake happened to pass by and rescued me. He led his men to teach that thug a brutal lesson. I had never met anyone like Jake before, a streetwise hero. I went against my entire family and insisted on marrying him, thinking that after we were married, he would shield me from the chaos of the outside world. But I never expected that once I became Jake's wife, all the chaos in my life would come from him. Jake lived a life of violence and ego. Every other day, someone was brawling or out for revenge. I got splashed with dirty water just walking down the street. While sitting at home, people would throw bricks through our windows. Once, shards of glass cut me all over. And Jake? He still cared more about saving face than keeping me safe. Whenever one of Jake's so-called brothers ran into trouble, they'd come running for help. If their own money wasn't enough, they came to him, and he came to me. In my past life, blinded by love, I even used my dowry to help Jake support his crew. Every 2 years, I burned through everything my parents had given me for marriage. When I think back to how much I sacrificed, only to be repaid with 4 dry, hollow words. "She's a great sister-in-law." It makes my skin crawl. Back then, I became the target of Jake's enemies. Not a single one of those loyal brothers lifted a finger to help me. I was eventually thrown into an underground nightclub as payment for Jake's debts. And two of Jake's so-called best friends even tried to take advantage of me there, despite calling me their sister-in-law. I didn't want to live like that for even one more day. Thankfully, this time, it's not too late to change things. I pulled out an old ledger from my suitcase. Every penny Jake had taken from me over the past 2 years of marriage was recorded in there. Every time he asked for money, Jake swore those guys were loyal, that they were just going through a rough patch and would absolutely pay me back when things got better. But in my past life, when debt collectors came after me, I lost our 5-month-old unborn child to a beating. With my injured body, I went door to door trying to collect what was owed. Not one of Jake's so-called loyal brothers opened their door. Some let dogs loose on me. Others denied ever borrowing a thing. One even tried to grope me, saying filthy things like, "Sleep with me for one night and I'll pay you back." This time, I'd rather toss my money into a river than let these scumbags take another cent from me. Holding the ledger, I went to each house one by one. Jake was still the big boss of the Iron Dragon gang in this life, and the small-time thugs in the county were all afraid of him. When they saw me with the ledger, they muttered things like, "Can't believe Jake would actually make her collect debts." But none of them dared to defy me. They paid up one after another. After 2 straight days of effort, I managed to recover 80% of my dowry. I had a hunch the remaining 20% had been lent to Rachel. Jake hadn't been home the last 2 days, but since he was such a big name around town, I still heard news about him and Rachel every single day. Word was, Jake had personally escorted Rachel back to her in-laws' place and beaten the hell out of her abusive husband. People said he rented out an entire dance hall to throw her birthday party and even ordered a 2-tier buttercream cake from the city. Rachel became the center of attention. But only I knew Jake would soon be back asking me for money again. The night before his return, I deposited all the money I'd recovered into the bank. That evening, Jake came home carrying 2 plastic boxes of leftover takeout. "Madeline, I figured you hadn't eaten yet," he said, trying to please me. "I brought your favorites, sticky rice chicken and steamed pork with rice flour." I cut him off coldly. "You're mistaken. Those are Rachel's favorites. My mom is really into healthy eating. I grew up on light food. My favorite dishes are stir-fried celery with lily bulbs and boiled shrimp with salt." Jake froze, awkwardly rubbed his hands, and placed the containers on the table. Then, flashing his usual fake grin, he asked, "Madeline, do we have any money left at home?" Rachel was discharged today and treated the whole gang to dinner and dancing. The restaurant and dance hall are still waiting to be paid. You know how her husband is. He never even gives her living expenses. How could she possibly have the money to settle the bill? I scoffed. Then maybe she shouldn't act like she's loaded. Why should I be the one paying for Rachel's party? Jake's face darkened. "No one's asking you to pay. I'm just saying we can cover it for now. Once Rachel has the money, she'll pay us back." Without a word, I pulled out the ledger and handed it to him. "Fine. As the saying goes, borrow and repay, and you can borrow again. I'll give you the money once Rachel returns what she already borrowed." Jake took the book, confused. As he flipped through it, his expression slowly turned sour. "Rachel was right. You're calculating. I even spoke up for you, and here you are, keeping track of every single dime you've lent my brothers." He snapped the ledger in half with a loud rip and threw the pieces in my face. I didn't flinch. "Go ahead, tear it up. I've made multiple copies. Let me make this clear. If Rachel doesn't repay what she owes in 3 days, I'll go straight to her husband and collect it myself." Jake's face twisted in rage. He raised his arm, ready to hit me. I stared him down coldly. "You lay one finger on me, and I'll report you to the police." Jake let out a bitter laugh. "The police? You really think that'll work? Don't you know I have connections inside the station?" I nodded calmly. Of course I know. That's why I never expected them to arrest you. I just wanted to embarrass him, plain and simple. Jake, the so-called big shot of the streets, actually got reported to the police by his own wife. Just thinking about it made me laugh. Jake had no way of dealing with me, so in a rage, he flipped the table over and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. This time, I didn't bother cleaning up his mess. The apartment we lived in was rented anyway. If I didn't even want the man anymore, why would I care about this shabby place? But to my surprise, just as I was packing my things, Jake came back. Behind him was Rachel, dressed in a brand new red dress, standing there smugly like she'd just caught me in some grand scandal, ready to watch me fall. Jake stormed in and immediately grabbed the thermos from the table, smashing it hard against the floor. Boiling water and shattered glass sprayed onto me. My legs exposed beneath the hem of my skirt were instantly slashed with more than a dozen cuts, and a large patch of my arm turned red from the scalding water. Jake was startled and moved toward me, but before he could reach me, Rachel suddenly shrieked behind him. "Jake, my arm hurts." Without hesitation, Jake turned back around and rushed to her side, cupping her arm tenderly. When he saw a small blister forming on her smooth skin, he glared at me and snapped, "Madeline, apologize." Clutching my burned arm, I clenched my jaw and glared back. "You're the one who threw the thermos." "I didn't do a damn thing. Why should I apologize?" Jake scowled. "If you hadn't made a scene demanding Rachel pay back the money, we wouldn't have come back here. And if we hadn't come back, she wouldn't have gotten hurt. You dragged her into our argument. Don't you think you owe her an apology?" I looked at Rachel, lips curled into a cold smile. "So, are you here to repay your debt?" Rachel's face flushed, and she immediately looked to Jake, clearly uncomfortable. Jake's expression darkened. "What money? I'm the head of this household. I'll take care of Rachel's debt. She doesn't need to pay it back." I let out a cold laugh. "Jake, you've got some nerve. What gives you the right to decide what happens with my dowry money? I'm your man. That's reason enough. Then I don't want you as my man anymore." Despite the searing pain in my legs, I turned around, grabbed the divorce papers from the table, and threw them in his face. "Jake, I want a divorce." The moment the word divorce left my mouth, I saw a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. "Madeline, what the hell are you doing? I've treated you so well. Since we got married, I haven't even laid a finger on you. Just one argument, and you want to divorce me?" Rachel chimed in with a fake sweet tone. "Madeline, you really don't know how lucky you are. A man like Jake, capable, loyal, and not even the type to hit his wife. Men like that are practically extinct these days." I gave her a strange look and asked mockingly, "Is that all it takes to be a good man in your book? Just not hitting his wife? No wonder every guy you pick is worse than the last." Rachel's face turned beet red. Furious and flustered, she pouted and whined to Jake. "Jake, we're like family. Are you really going to just stand there and let your wife humiliate me like this?" Jake's face turned dark as thunder, his eyes locked on me with pure fury. "Madeline, apologize to Rachel." I hugged my injured arm and looked at the two of them coldly. "Sure, I'll apologize. Just tell me which part of what I said was wrong. That not hitting your wife makes you a good man? If that's what Rachel calls a good man, then I'm not qualified to keep one like that. Since you cherish her so much, why don't you let her divorce her abusive husband and take you instead? That way you can take care of her openly and stop sneaking around like you've been doing." Smack. Jake slapped me across the face. The left side of my pale face immediately turned red, a bright handprint standing out starkly. For a moment, he looked completely panicked. "Madeline, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I just lost control for a second. If you want, you can hit me back." I touched my burning cheek and let out a cold, bitter laugh. "Sure." As I spoke, I raised my arm and slapped Jake hard across the face. The force of it made his head snap to the side. Rachel didn't have time to keep up her weak, delicate act. She immediately lunged at me, trying to strike back on Jake's behalf. I swung my arm in a backhand and slapped her across the face. She let out a sharp scream and came at me again, but Jake grabbed her tightly, holding her back. Furious, Rachel shouted at him. Jake, let me go. I have to teach this woman a lesson today. I'm telling you, you can't let a woman walk all over you. If you don't deal with her now, next time she'll be on your head. I stared at her in disbelief. This was a woman who had just been beaten so badly by her husband that she had to be hospitalized. And now she was telling another man to hit his wife. Rachel kept trying to defend Jake, but to my surprise, Jake looked at her and said, "Rachel, that's enough. Madeline's an educated woman. She's delicate. Not like you, jumping fences and scrapping with boys since you were a kid. You've got thick skin. I wouldn't have the heart to hit her." Rachel hadn't expected that. Her face turned bright red with humiliation and anger. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. For the past 2 years, I'd been married to Jake. Rachel had been around constantly under the guise of being just a good buddy. She spent more time with him than I did as his actual wife. But now Jake had just publicly confirmed she was only a brother to him, and she was the one who got upset. Rachel stormed out, fuming. But this time, Jake didn't run after her. Instead, like some kind of model husband, he picked up a broom and started sweeping the broken pieces of the thermos off the floor. Then he turned to me with a hopeful look and said, "Madeline, let me take you out for hot pot. You've been wanting to try that lamb place for a while now, right? Let's go today, just the two of us. I'll drive you there on my new motorcycle." What a joke. When he first bought that jelly motorcycle, I'd gotten all dressed up in his favorite pale yellow dress, waiting shyly at home like a scene out of a movie. I'd imagined him riding up and whisking me away through the city streets. But when he came back with the bike, sitting on the back seat was Rachel, bright red lipstick, a flashy red dress, arms wrapped arrogantly around his waist. Right in front of me, she laughed and said, "Oh, Madeline, don't misunderstand. Jake and I are just good buddies. He promised that if he ever bought a bike, I'd be the first to ride it. You don't mind, right?" At that moment, I was so hurt, I nearly cried. Then Jake asked me for money. He wanted to treat his brothers to lamb hot pot to celebrate the new bike. I brought the money to the restaurant and was about to go inside when Rachel shoved me back. "Come on, Madeline. Tonight's for the boys. Just us brothers getting together for drinks. No need for a woman like you to crash the party." I looked to Jake for help. He nodded. "Rachel's right. These guys get wild. I don't want you to get scared. Just head home." So, I stood outside that hot pot restaurant, stomach growling, and watched Jake, under the teasing of his brothers, drink a lover's toast with Rachel. I couldn't understand it back then. If this was their idea of brotherhood, why did it feel so much like cheating? Now, in this life, I finally understood that so-called brotherly bond. It was Rachel was just a married woman flirting shamelessly with another man. My mind snapped back to the present. Jake was still trying to convince me to go out for lamb hot pot, cheerfully pointing to the motorcycle like nothing had happened. He motioned for me to hop on the back. I curled my lips into a mocking smile. "Jake, maybe you should open your eyes and take a good look at me. I'm covered in injuries. What I need right now is to get to the clinic, not a hot pot restaurant. And besides, lamb is a heating food. People with injuries shouldn't eat it." Jake froze, then scratched his head awkwardly. I didn't know. I cut him off. "Yes, you did. When Rachel got hurt in that nightclub brawl, you made me cook for her. You even told me yourself she got cut by a broken glass bottle, so she couldn't eat beef or lamb." After a long pause, I still got on the motorcycle. My body needed treatment. They weren't worth ruining my body over. At the clinic, the doctor was in the middle of treating my wounds when Rachel's younger brother, Ryan, suddenly burst in. "Jake, something's wrong. My sister's gone crazy in the arcade. She's fighting people. Guys from the Flying Dragon gang cut, they're going to chop off her arm. Jake shot up from his seat. He ran a few steps toward the door, then remembered I was still getting treated. He turned back briefly and said, "Madeline, stay here and finish with the doctor. I'll go handle things with Rachel and come back for you." Without waiting for a reply, he followed Ryan and rushed off toward the arcade. But I knew he wouldn't be coming back. Rachel wouldn't let him come back. Once the bandages were done, I hobbled back to our rented apartment and started thinking about the road ahead. Jake would never agree to a divorce, but that was fine. I had ways to make him want one. I thought about Rachel's husband, the same useless, overweight guy from my past life. Digging into my memories, I found him. His name was Zach Walker. To my surprise, he looked scholarly and well-mannered, not at all like someone who would beat his wife. We sat down to talk, and I finally got the full picture. Rachel hadn't just gotten beat because she danced too close to Jake in a nightclub. She's just that kind of woman, Zach said bitterly. She won't leave your man alone because Jake's the only one she hasn't seduced yet. He clenched his jaw and added, she even bragged to people at the club that in our gang, she slept with every decent-looking man except Jake. And now, thanks to her, I've caught something. She gave me an STD. Zach's voice cracked and tears rolled down his face. I was completely stunned. "What are you going to do next?" I asked. "Of course I'm divorcing her," he growled. "But I'm not letting her off easy. When we got married, my family gave her $600 in cash as a dowry. I want every cent of it back." In that moment, it all clicked. So, that's why in my past life, Rachel had begged Jake to lend her $600. Thinking of the way she looked at Jake, a plan began to form in my mind. "Zach," I said calmly, "if you help me with two things, I'll make sure you get your divorce and your $600 back." That night, I went all out preparing a delicious meal. I asked someone to pass word to Jake to come home for dinner. He assumed I'd finally come around and softened up. He even complimented me saying, "Now this is how a real sister-in-law should act." I just smiled politely and shifted the conversation toward Rachel. "Jake, I've been thinking. Rachel's always causing trouble out there, and I think it's because she's miserable in her marriage. I heard she wants a divorce, but her husband's family is refusing unless she returns the $600 dowry. Only then will they agree to let her go." Jake frowned. "$600? That's a bit much." I nodded gently and said, "But Rachel's your childhood buddy. Can you really bear to see her stuck in a miserable marriage? Here's what I think. We sell your motorcycle. Use $600 from the sale to help Rachel out of her marriage. Whatever's left can help us around the house." Jake hesitated. "If we don't have enough, I'll borrow a little more. But selling the bike? I use it every day." I knew he wouldn't want to part with that bike, so I stood up, opened the door, and in came Rachel, who'd been eavesdropping outside the whole time. Her eyes were red as she walked in and cried, "Jake, didn't you say you'd go through fire and water for your brothers? You can always buy another motorcycle later. But if I don't get out of this marriage, that man's going to kill me. Please, Jake, we're family. Sell the bike and help me get the divorce, okay?" Jake always cared about his pride in front of his crew. Faced with this emotional blackmail, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and agree. Once the bike was sold and the money secured, Zach wasted no time getting the divorce papers signed. I even made a point of suggesting Jake spend more time with Rachel during this transition. Jake was clearly caught off guard. His face showed a mix of surprise and unease. He tested the waters by asking, "Rachel's been clinging to me like this? You're not upset?" I gave him a warm, gentle smile. "I used to be too narrow-minded. I shouldn't have been so jealous. I know you only see Rachel as a brother. Besides, I'm the sister-in-law here, remember?" "You're right," I said. "As the sister-in-law, I should be more generous and understanding." Jake beamed with satisfaction and praised me a couple of times before rushing out to comfort his brother. Thanks to my careful publicity campaign, everyone in the Iron Glory gang now knew that their loyal Jake had sold his beloved motorcycle just to help his brother Rachel escape a toxic marriage. A show-off like Jake would never pass up such a golden opportunity to be admired by his men. That night, Jake rented out an entire dance hall to celebrate Rachel's escape from her abusive husband and return to single life. I knew Rachel wouldn't miss a chance like this. 2 hours later, I got a call from Zach Walker. "Jake's drunk," he said. Rachel took him to a hotel. Feigning concern, I gathered Jake's relatives and headed to the hotel together. When we opened the door, we found the two of them tangled up on the bed, clothes torn and scattered across the floor. Jake's father was so furious he kicked Jake hard in the side. Jake's mother let out a scream and slapped Rachel twice across the face. In my past life, I had always wondered. Jake and Rachel had grown up as neighbors, childhood sweethearts. Why had his mother been so dead set against him marrying Rachel? Now it made sense. Jake's mother must have known long ago that Rachel was sleeping around. She didn't want her son wearing a green hat, so she picked me instead, the quiet, obedient girl from a good family. Jake, dazed from the blow, looked up and saw me standing in the crowd. Panic washed over his face. "Madeline, let me explain. It's not what it looks like." I stared at him coldly. "Jake, let's get divorced. You know how I am. I'm a neat freak. I don't want a man who's dirty." Jake still had his pride and in the end, he agreed to the divorce. We'd been married for 2 years living in a rented apartment. He barely contributed a cent. I had supported the household, even paid for his parents' expenses, all with my dowry. Knowing he was in the wrong, Jake insisted on giving me the leftover money from the sale of his motorcycle. I didn't refuse. I had earned that. After the divorce, I quit my job as a substitute teacher and headed south with 5,000 yuan to start a small business. Riding the economic wave of the era, I opened small commodity stores across more than a dozen cities. Headbands, hair accessories, earrings, rings, shoes, hats, socks, all kinds of trendy and fun little items brought me a fortune. That year, a massive flood hit the provincial capital. When I saw soldiers standing in floodwaters for days, their feet raw and wounded, I couldn't bear it. I sent every pair of cotton socks and slippers from my warehouse to the front lines of flood relief. To my surprise, the officer in charge of receiving the supplies turned out to be my old classmate, Andrew Foster. "Madeline, you started a business? You were always the academic star. What happened to your dream of becoming a scientist? And you," I laughed, "didn't you want to be a scientist, too? Why'd you end up joining the army?" We looked at each other and smiled as if we were back in our school days again. From that day on, I officially joined the flood relief volunteer team. Over the years of running my stores in the city, I had built up a strong network. When I put the call out, countless kind-hearted merchants joined the effort. When the soldiers were hungry, vendors brought hot pepper soup, fried bread, tea, and stuffed buns. When they were tired, tents were pitched right on the levees so they wouldn't have to sleep on the cold, wet ground. A few days later, when the floodwaters finally receded, we gathered to send off the troops. A few girls from my shop pushed me toward Andrew and said, "Deputy Commander, you saved her life. We can't repay you, so how about we give you a wife instead?" Andrew blushed and shouted, "I'll take her." 3 months later, we registered our marriage. After the wedding, I didn't follow him into the army. I stayed in the city to keep running my business. Andrew handed over every penny he had saved during his years of service, more than 30,000 yuan. With that money, plus the savings I had accumulated over the past 2 years, I bought a plot of land on the outskirts of the city and opened the capital's only wholesale market for small goods. I divided the wholesale market into more than 100 rental stalls, giving priority to military families who were struggling financially. From the moment the small commodity market opened, business was booming. Because I created so many jobs for the military community, the Army even awarded me a certificate as a model military spouse. The market's success also stimulated the surrounding economy. Many laid-off workers found new opportunities. Some made a living by hauling goods with tricycles for the vendors around the market. But what I hadn't expected was to run into my ex-husband, Jake, at the wholesale market. He looked far older than his actual age. His left arm had been amputated and he was pedaling a battered second-hand tricycle with just one hand, going from shop to shop begging for delivery work. Need a delivery, boss? I'll do it for $1 less. When he saw me approaching with a ring of keys to collect rent, panic flashed in his eyes. He quickly lowered his head, twisted the handlebars, and pedaled off in a rush. Later, I learned that he lost his arm during a fight at a nightclub while trying to defend Rachel. He'd been hacked with a knife. After our divorce, Rachel had eagerly tried to take my place, but Jake never intended to marry her. They were from the same circle, and as the former boss of his gang, Jake knew all too well how many of the guys Rachel had slept with. She was fine as a brother, but not someone he'd ever bring home as a wife. He didn't want to wear that kind of green hat. Even after Rachel begged and clung to him, Jake refused to marry her. So, she went back to her old ways, drinking, partying, causing drama in clubs and arcades, leaving Jake to clean up after her every time. And just like that, Jake lost his arm and became disabled. Then came the government crackdown. Nightclubs were shut down, the gang disbanded, and Jake lost his income. With one arm gone and no one to care for him, he eventually agreed, reluctantly, to marry Rachel. But married life didn't change him. Jake was still the kind of man who'd bleed for his brothers. If they needed money, he lent it. If they had nowhere to eat, he brought them home and treated them like kings. Before long, he spent everything they had. When the money ran out, he started borrowing. Then he secretly sold off Rachel's clothes and jewelry. All it took was someone casually calling him Brother Jake and praising his loyalty, and he'd give them the shirt off his back. It was okay once or twice, but after it happened again and again, Rachel couldn't take it anymore. They had a huge fight. Still, Rachel couldn't change. Wanting good food and nice clothes, she eventually gave in to temptation and went to work at a KTV, selling drinks to clients. One night, while she was entertaining a guest, Jake caught her in the act. They had a screaming match at a late-night food stall. That was when Jake finally understood why Rachel's ex-husband had beaten her. Jake wanted to hit her, too. But by then, Rachel had already latched onto a new boss at the nightclub. At the snap of his fingers, a gang of men swarmed Jake and beat him half to death. Jake ended up divorced, again. But this time, he had one arm, no job, and no one willing to introduce him to another woman. Years later, Andrew and I returned to our hometown with our 1-year-old twins to visit our ancestors. That was when I heard the latest about Jake. Apparently, one night he got drunk and completely lost it. He started screaming that he was a billionaire, then staggered off to the KTV to look for Rachel. She mocked him viciously, and in a rage, he grabbed a fruit knife from the coffee table and stabbed her 18 times. Rachel died on the spot. Jake was sentenced to death. When his parents heard I had come home, they sent me a wrinkled envelope saying Jake had written it for me before his execution. Andrew stared at the envelope, his eyes full of jealousy. Want to open it and see? I shook my head and tossed the envelope straight into the fire pit. As the flames swallowed the last trace of Jake's past, I felt no sorrow, only peace. Life had already given me a second chance, and I had used it not for revenge, but to reclaim my dignity, my freedom, and my future. Standing beside Andrew with our children giggling in the background and the wind rustling through the trees, I realized that I had finally let go of everything that once weighed me down. Pain, betrayal, guilt, they no longer had power over me. Jake had chosen his path, and so had I. I turned, took Andrew's hand, and walked away from the ashes. This time, toward a life that truly belonged to me. One built not on sacrifice, but on choice. Not on survival, but on love. And that was enough.